Leave. The storm rolled in faster than we expected. One moment, the sky was just gray. The next, it was black, swollen with thunderclouds that swallowed the last of the daylight. We had planned to camp along the ridge, but the winds made pitching tents impossible. So we hiked down into the valley, hoping to find some sort of shelter. What we found was an old abandoned cabin. At least we thought it was abandoned. The roof sagged in places, moss covering most of it. The porch groaned under our weight as we stepped onto it, lightning flashing behind us. Sarah banged on the door, half as a joke, no answer. The rain came harder, drumming on the tin roof. We had no choice. We forced the swollen door open and stepped inside. The place smelled of damp wood and dust, like it hadn't been lived in for decades. But there was furniture, a small table, a couch with stuffing spilling out, and against one wall, a tall, narrow window. It was locked tight. We set up inside quickly, shaking off our wet clothes, laying sleeping bags on the floor. The wind screamed outside, and we told ourselves the cabin was safe, warm even. But then, just as I started to drift off, I heard it. Click. I opened my eyes. The window across the room was open, not broken, not cracked by the storm, just wide open, as if someone had unlatched it. "Did you open that?" I whispered to Jake. He sat up groggy. "What? No." The wind howled louder now that the gap let it in. The curtains flapped like frantic wings. I got up, walked to the window, and shut it. The old lock clicked into place. But even as I turned back toward my sleeping bag, click, the sound again. I froze, slowly turned my head. The window was open. Again, rain blew in, spattering across the wooden floor. This time I knew with every shiver crawling across my skin, that none of us had touched it. Sarah sat up. "Stop messing around," she hissed, but her voice trembled. "I'm not," I whispered. We all sat there, watching, listening. Lightning flashed, thunder cracked, and right then, clear as anything, the lock lifted on its own. Click. The window creaked open wider. Rain poured in. The curtains fluttered outward like something had just slipped inside. Jake swore under his breath, grabbed his flashlight, and swept it across the room. Nothing. Just us. But I swear on everything, that for half a second, I saw a hand. Pale, wet, gripping the window frame before vanishing into the storm. We barricaded it after that, dragged the couch against it, stacked our packs on top, trying to convince ourselves it was just the wind. But the storm didn't let up, and neither did the sounds. All night, every few minutes. Click, the sound of the lock lifting, the couch shuddering slightly, as if something was testing it. By morning, the storm had passed. We packed up fast, desperate to leave that cabin behind. But when we pushed the couch away from the window, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Fingerprints. Clear, wet fingerprints pressed into the glass. And the marks weren't just on the outside. They were on the inside too. We never camped near that valley again. But sometimes when it rains at night and the wind rattles my own windows, I wake up in a cold sweat, because I know it wasn't just the storm that night. Something was outside, and it wanted in. Thanks for the ride. I'll see you on the next rainy night. The rain that night was heavier than usual. Not a soft drizzle, not a summer shower. This was the kind of downpour that drowned the streets, blurred windows, and made the world outside vanish behind sheets of water. I was driving back from work, exhausted, when I realized how late it had become. The clock on the dashboard blinked 11:47 p.m. The road was empty, swallowed in blackness except for the weak glow of my headlights slicing through the storm. The wipers moved furiously, but they couldn't keep up. Each second, the glass smeared with water, forcing me to squint to see the road. I turned the radio off because even the low hum of music made me anxious. All I could hear was the rain and the occasional rumble of thunder rolling through the night. That's when I saw him. A figure on the side of the road. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Who would be out in this weather? The figure stood still, drenched, with his head down, face hidden under the shadow of a hood. His arm rose slowly, his thumb sticking out. Hitchhiking, my foot hesitated on the gas. My brain screamed, "Don't stop, keep driving." But another part of me whispered, what if he's stranded? What if he needs help? I slowed down. The headlights swept over him, revealing more detail. He wore an old jacket, so soaked it clung to his body. His jeans were torn at the knees, muddy from the roadside. I couldn't see his eyes, but something about the way he stood made my stomach tighten. Still, I pulled over. The rain thudded against the roof as the passenger door creaked open. He slid inside without a word. For a while, silence. The only sounds were the storm outside and his wet clothes dripping onto the floor mat. I gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, my knuckles white. "Where are you headed?" I asked finally, my voice breaking the heavy quiet. He turned his head toward me slowly. His hood shifted just enough for me to see a pale, gaunt face. His lips curved, not into a smile, not exactly, but something between a grin and a grimace. "Just keep driving," he said. His voice was low, gravelly, but strangely calm. A shiver crawled down my spine. We drove in silence for miles. Every so often, lightning flashed, illuminating his face for a split second. Each time, I caught details I hadn't noticed before. How his skin seemed stretched too tightly over his bones. How his lips twitched as though he were muttering something under his breath. At one point, I swore I heard him whispering. The words were too soft to understand, but they were definitely not meant for me. I turned the radio back on, desperate to fill the silence. Static filled the car, then faint music. But the man beside me reached forward slowly and turned the dial back to off. "Better quiet," he murmured. The silence returned, thicker, heavier. The storm worsened. The road wound through a stretch of forest, trees bending in the wind, branches snapping and crashing into the darkness. My nerves were raw, and my body begged me to stop, to find somewhere safe until morning. Finally, I spotted an old gas station up ahead. Its lights flickered weakly through the rain, the only sign of life in miles. I slowed down, but before I could pull in, the man beside me spoke. "Don't stop here." His voice was sharper this time, almost a command. I froze. "Why not?" "Just don't," he said, his head tilted toward me. And in the flash of lightning, I saw his eyes. They weren't just tired. They weren't just hollow. They were wrong. Dark, sunken, with a gleam that didn't belong to anything human. My chest tightened. Panic spread through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I kept driving, the gas station fading in the rearview mirror. Minutes stretched like hours. And then, something strange happened. Through the blur of rain, I noticed a figure on the side of the road. Another one, standing in the same position, head down, hood covering his face. Thumb out, my blood ran cold. I glanced at the man beside me. He was staring straight ahead, lips twitching again as though whispering to himself. When I looked back at the road, the figure was gone. I couldn't take it anymore. My voice cracked as I said, "Look, I don't know what's going on, but I need to know where you're going. You can't just sit here in silence." The man turned to me again, slowly, and then he grinned. This time it was wider, stretching his lips unnaturally. "I already told you," he said softly. "Just keep driving." My hands shook on the wheel. My throat tightened. A scream trapped inside. And then he leaned closer. His breath was cold against my ear as he whispered, "They're waiting for us." The next thing I remember is waking up in my car at sunrise. The rain was gone. The world was calm, quiet. The storm nothing more than a memory. The passenger seat beside me was empty. No sign of him. But the floor mat was still wet. And when I opened the glove compartment to grab my phone, something slipped out. A scrap of paper. Soaked, crumpled, the ink almost smudged away. But I could still read the words. "Thanks for the ride. I'll see you on the next rainy night." The rain had been falling all evening, steady and relentless. The kind that soaks through your jacket, no matter how tight you pull it around yourself. My friends and I had just finished a weekend camping trip in the hills and were heading back into town. But our car broke down halfway along the road, leaving us stranded miles from anywhere. We tried calling for help, but of course there was no service this deep into the valley. So we walked. That's when we saw it, the old bus stop. It stood at the edge of the road, half hidden by overgrown weeds, its roof sagging under years of weather. The glass shelter was cracked, and the flickering bulb inside buzzed like it was clinging to life. "Better than nothing," Jake muttered, pulling his hood tighter. We ducked inside, dripping water onto the concrete floor, shivering in the damp night. Lightning flashed above the trees, followed by the low rumble of thunder. We told ourselves we'd wait here until morning, then hike into town. But the bus stop wasn't empty. At first, I thought it was just a shadow in the far corner, slouched against the wall. A figure, still as stone. The storm made everything hard to see, and I blinked twice before nudging Sarah. "Do you see that?" Her eyes widened. "Yeah." We froze, staring. The figure didn't move, didn't flinch. Then, as the light above us flickered again, I realized it wasn't just a shadow. It was a man. Or at least, it looked like one. He was soaked through, clothes hanging heavy on his thin frame. His head was tilted downward, face hidden beneath wet, stringy hair. For the longest time, none of us spoke. Finally, Jake cleared his throat. Hey man, didn't see you there." No answer. The only sound was the rain drumming on the roof, dripping through the cracked glass. Then, the figure shifted. Slowly, his head tilted up. And that's when I saw his face. If you could even call it that. His skin was pale, waterlogged, like he'd been lying in a river for days. His eyes were cloudy, unfocused, but still somehow fixed on us. And when his lips parted, a guttural rasp escaped. Not words, not a breath, just waiting. Sarah clutched my arm. "Let's go." We stumbled back out into the rain, our boots splashing in the puddles. But every time lightning cracked across the sky, I swore I saw him. Still sitting there, still staring. We walked faster, then faster still. But soon, the road stretched into darkness, and the storm swallowed everything around us. That's when we heard it. Footsteps, not ours, behind us, splashing in perfect rhythm with our own, as though someone was following, matching us, step for step. Jake spun around with his flashlight. Nothing. But when he turned back, Sarah gasped. The man was standing in the middle of the road. Not slouched anymore. Not waiting. Standing. Closer than he should have been. Rain poured down his face. But he didn't blink. Didn't move. Until he tilted his head again. Like he was listening. Then he whispered. Low. Raspy. Almost drowned out by the storm. He said my name. I froze, heart hammering. My friends screamed at me to move, and we bolted, running into the storm as fast as our legs could carry us. But no matter how far we ran, the footsteps followed, faster, closer. When we finally stumbled into the outskirts of town, drenched and gasping, the footsteps stopped. We turned back. The road was empty, the bus stop far behind us, swallowed in the storm. We never saw him again. But sometimes, when it rains at night and I pass a bus stop, I can't help but look twice. Because part of me knows. He's still there, still waiting. And sooner or later, he'll call my name again. The rain had been falling for so long that the forest floor looked more like a swamp than solid ground. Our camping trip had turned into a disaster. The trail that was supposed to lead us back toward the main road had flooded out, and after hours of slipping through mud, we stumbled into the outskirts of a forgotten little town. It wasn't on any map we had. No cars, no stores. Just a few rows of sagging wooden houses and one thin street that stretched past a rusty bus stop. And in the middle of that street, barely holding against the storm, was a single streetlight. Its glow flickered in the rain, sputtering like a candle that refused to go out. Thank God, Sarah said, pulling her hood tighter against the downpour. At least we can wait under that until the rain slows. I wanted to keep moving. Something about the place made my stomach twist, but the others were too exhausted. We dragged our muddy boots across the cracked pavement and stood beneath the weak light, dripping, shivering, waiting. The town was dead quiet. No voices, no movement, only the hiss of rain and the buzzing of that one light above us. That was when I noticed something. Every time the bulb flickered, it wasn't random. It pulsed like Morse code. Long flash, too short, long again. Do you see that? I whispered. Jake tilted his head back, frowning. Probably just water in the wires. But I couldn't shake it. The rhythm was too precise, too deliberate. We stood there, and the storm kept hammering down. The puddles at our feet grew deeper, rippling with every cold gust of wind. And all the while, that streetlight blinked, blinked, blinked. Sarah was the first to notice the other thing. There's someone standing out there. We all turned, and sure enough, at the far end of the street, barely visible through the curtain of rain, was a shape. A person, tall, still, watching. I lifted my flashlight, but the beam barely cut through the downpour. The figure didn't move. Then the light above us flickered again. This time faster, erratic. The figure took one step closer. Okay, let's go, Jake muttered. He grabbed his pack and started toward the opposite side of the street. But as soon as he moved, the streetlight went completely dark. We froze in the blackness. Only the rain, only our breathing. Then the bulb sputtered back to life, bright, buzzing, alive again. And the figure was gone. Sarah let out a gasp. She clutched my arm so tightly, her nails dug into my jacket. But before I could speak, I saw it. Now the figure was closer, standing at the edge of the bus stop. No sound of footsteps, just there. Its head tilted slightly, as if it was curious or listening. The light flickered violently, almost strobing now. With each blink, the figure seemed closer. Bus stop, middle of the street. Then, only a few yards away. We couldn't move, couldn't scream. The storm roared, thunder crashing, but all I could hear was the buzzing of the street light and the pounding of my heart. Jake finally snapped out of it. He bolted, splashing through puddles, yelling for us to follow. We didn't even think, we just ran. Our boots slipped on the slick pavement. Water sprayed up our legs, but we didn't stop. The street light blinked out again, plunging the world into pitch black. And in that split second of darkness, I felt something brush my shoulder. Cold, wet, human. I screamed, pushing forward harder, not daring to look back. The light came back, just long enough for us to see the road bend toward the woods. We sprinted for it, lungs burning, until the town was swallowed by the storm behind us. When we finally collapsed beneath the trees, gasping, the rain still pouring, I turned back. In the distance, through the sheets of water, I saw it one last time. The street light, flickering, like it was calling us back. We never found that town again. Later, I tried searching maps, forms, anything. Nothing showed up. But sometimes, on stormy nights when street lights buzz and flicker outside my window, I remember the rhythm it flashed that night. It wasn't broken wiring. It was a message. And I'm terrified one day I'll finally understand what it was saying. The rain had been falling for hours. Not a gentle drizzle, but a heavy, endless storm that rattled the forest, shook the branches, and turned the earth into mud. 3 of us, me, Jake, and my younger cousin Eric, had set up camp near the edge of a small clearing not far from an abandoned cabin. We hadn't planned to stay by the cabin, but when the storm rolled in faster than expected, we thought its old wooden porch would give us shelter. By the time we dragged our gear up to it, we were already soaked to the bone. The cabin itself looked half rotten, its windows boarded, its door swollen from years of rain. It didn't look lived in. No smoke from a chimney, no footprints, just the forgotten shell of something left behind. We set up our small tents just a few feet away from the porch. Under a tarp, we stretched between 2 trees. The rain beat down hard on it, each drop like a fist pounding on thin plastic. But it kept us dry enough, and that was all we wanted. For a while, the sound of the storm drowned out everything else. We cooked ramen on a little stove, told dumb stories, and tried to laugh about how unlucky we were to get caught in such weather. It felt safe enough, loud, yes, but safe. Then, the knocking started. At first, I thought it was just branches snapping in the wind. A dull, hollow sound. Knock, 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 but it didn't stop. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. We all froze for a second, looking at each other. The sound had come from the cabin. Probably the wind, Jake muttered, though his voice cracked a little. The door's loose or something. We nodded, tried to believe it. But just as Eric started unzipping his bag, it came again. Knock, knock, knock. Steady, measured, not random at all. I shined my flashlight toward the porch. The rain made it hard to see, blurring the edges of everything. But the door was shut. It didn't move. The boards rattled in the wind, but nothing strong enough to make that sound. We sat there for maybe a minute, silent except for the storm. Then, knock, 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 this time louder. Eric whispered, "It's like someone's asking to come in." None of us laughed at that. We stayed close to the fire, after that, whispering about whether we should just pack up and hike back to the car. But the storm was too brutal. The trails would be a mess, slippery, dangerous. We had no choice but to wait it out. The knocking kept coming. Every few minutes. Always 3 knocks. Always from the cabin door. By midnight, the storm had grown worse. Lightning split the sky in white flashes, and the thunder shook the ground. But even through all that noise, the knocking never got drowned out. Somehow, it was always clear, always steady. Knock, knock, knock. Finally, Jake had enough. "I'm gonna prove it's nothing," he said, grabbing the flashlight. I tried to stop him, but he was already stomping through the mud toward the porch. His boots squelched in the wet ground, his shadow jerking with every flash of lightning. He reached the door and banged his fist against it. "Who's there?" he shouted, his voice cracked into the storm. No answer. He looked back at us, shrugging like it was all in our heads. And then, knock, 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 right behind him. Jake spun around, shining the flashlight directly on the door. Nothing. Just swollen wood, peeling paint, and an old rusted lock. But the sound had been inches from where he stood. He ran back to us, pale, cursing under his breath. None of us went near the cabin again. We stayed huddled by the dying fire, listening. The knocks didn't stop. They came all night. Always 3. Always at the same slow pace. When the storm finally broke near dawn, we packed up fast, barely talking. The woods looked different in the gray morning light. Wet, heavy, drooping with rain, the cabin stood silent again, as if it hadn't made a sound all night. But when we passed it on our way out, Eric pointed at the door. His voice was barely a whisper. There were marks, fresh ones, 3 long scratches carved deep into the wood, just below where the knocking had been. Not from hands, not from an animal. Something sharper, something that wanted us to hear it. We never camped near that cabin again. And sometimes, on stormy nights, when the rain won't stop, I swear I can still hear it. Knock, knock,